Welcome to the Father Jim Clark Show.
Father Jim Clark Show.
Here on Heaven's Road FM. The only place to go for Catholic radio. Be blessed.
Be blessed.
Be entertained.
Be entertained.
Be welcome.
Be welcome.
Well, welcome back to the show, and today I have another guest with me. This time I've got Fr Eamon Mulcahy with me, who is a Spiritan father, probably better known as the Holy Ghost Father, I think. So, Eamon, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Jim. It's good
Great,
to be here.
Great to have you. So, Eamon, I want you to tell me everything about the Holy Ghost Fathers, because I don't know anything about them, which is...
My God.
So, I want to know... First of all, I want to know about you,
where
you were born, where you brought up. I also want to know about your vocation. Why the Spiritans? That's always dead interesting. Because anybody that I hear that kind of has a vocation, I try and get them back to the diocese. So I want to know about that. I also want to know about the Spiritans and the work that they do, where you've been, because I know you've been around the world a little bit, and why and how and what you're doing in Manchester. So off you go. There's plenty to go out there.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jim. Well, I'm a local lad because I'm from Levenshulme, born in Whittington Hospital, raised in Levenshulme, and Irish parents, Mary and Kieran.
With a name like Mulcahy, I would have guessed.
You would have guessed. I have an identical twin brother, Dominic, and an older sister, Moya. So we went to St. Mary's primary school, baptized and First Communion, everything, sacrament, St. Mary's. And when I was in primary school, age 9 or 10, some missionary priest came around the school. They're probably doing mission appeals.
Right.
But guess what? They were dressed in long white robes with a red fez on. So I was really attracted to these guys. Long white robe with a red fez.
With a fez.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then these big wooden rose beads around the neck. And it turned out they were white fathers, literally white fathers. So I was nine. And I was interested about Africa, so I started writing to them, which I did do. And they were sending me every couple of months. It was a Ronioed A4 newsletter with animals on the side, African. But all the contact was by letter when I was 9 and 10.
Right.
The following year when I was 10, guess what? Another priest came around the school, St. Mary's Levenshulme, mission appeal, and he was a Holy Ghost father, who I didn't particularly warm to because he wasn't wearing the long white robe with the red fez. But what happened, he was much more pushy, and he came around to the house. And he came at least twice to the house. So he was more hands-on. By this time I was 10, I was 11, I suppose. And then in 1966, he invited my brother and myself, actually, to go on a week's retreat in a junior seminary up in Grange-over-Sands, Morecambe Bay, for an Easter retreat, whereby in the morning there would be spiritual kind of exercises of Holy Week. Afternoon, swimming in the lake, in the river, football, archery, sport, the lakes, the sweet.
How to win a youngster over,
So guess what? I discovered my vocation at the tender age of, I went away when I was 12 to a junior seminary.
Brilliant, yeah.
However, I think, in all honesty...
And was that at that stage for the Holy Ghost Fathers?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So in the end, the White Fathers was my initial attraction, but they were only by letter and newsletter, whereas this guy was hands-on and invited us.
Yeah.
So I was 12 when I went, and I actually, my brother went as well, Dominic, and I spent 6 years in Grange-over-Sands in a junior seminary, and I was happy. My brother, by the age of 16, was no longer happy. And
so he went in as well?
Yeah.
Our poor parents.
And our poor parents. Our older sister was doing nursing, and she was like away from home. And then in one fell swoop, my poor parents lost both of us. Because they were simple Irish people who were saying, if this is from God, who are we to stop? But it would have been better had they said to us, wait till you were 18 or older. But in actual fact, they didn't. So we both went away, Dominic and I. But when Dominic, after 4 years, he decided to come back to Manchester, and he went to St. Greg's School and, never looked back. He's very happy at Greg's, except and he became a teacher. But at the age then of 18, in the junior seminary, just to give you an idea, the junior seminary, when we started in 1966, there were 77 students in the junior seminary. Of the 77 students, 3 of us became priests.
Really?
3 out of 77.
Wow.
And of the 3, unfortunately, one died age 57 in Vietnam, and then the other one has become a diocesan secular priest. So as it happens, of that 77 kids who were there in 1966, I'm the only one who's stayed with the Holy Ghost Fathers. I'll explain who they are in a minute.
Right.
When I was 18 then, okay, maybe I was in for the wrong reason. Maybe I was attracted to Africa and travel and exotic kind of things. But when I was 18, I went to Ireland. Because we are religious, unlike the diocesan secular priest, we do a canonical spiritual year called a novitiate. So whereby you don't do any academic study, and is dedicated to prayer, to reflection, to discerning, and they explain to you the meaning of religious life, taking a vow of poverty, chastity, obedience, lived in community for mission, because it was a missionary order. So I had a great blessing, I really did. I went in 1972, and the novice master was Father Willie Nugent, who I thought was quite old. He's 46.
Well, you would.
He's still alive, which is wonderful. 2015, he's still alive. Wonderful. But my God, he was a blessing. My spiritual director was then aged 82, Father Dan Murphy, and he lived until he was 96.
All right.
Now, that year in Ireland for me was the deciding factor, because what I received in that 1 year in Ireland from Father Willie Nugent and Father Dan Murphy, and I came across the writings of a Holy Ghost Father who was dead, called Edward Lean. He was a spiritual writer of the 30s and 40s. Coming across the writings of Lean and the example of Father Nugent and Dan Murphy, and the way they broke open the scriptures and their commitment, I said to myself, if I can communicate to other people what I've received from them, that's what I want to do. So when I was 19, I took my first vows and my first commitment. We were 36 novices in Ireland, but there were 3 of us from England, and we had to come back to England.
Right.
So it was a bit sad, because you kind of create a community for a whole year in Ireland, and they went on to Kimmage Manor in Dublin, and I came back to England, and we went to the Missionary Institute London, which is Mill Hill.
Right.
So in 1973, I began to study philosophy and theology. So I did 5 years, straight run, in Mill Hill, and I did a university degree in theology with Louvain. Right, so I went to Mill Hill, the Missionary Institute London, which was affiliated to the Catholic University of Leuven, and in 1978 I took my degree, and then my life changed, because at the age of 24 I went to Africa for the first time.
Whereabouts in Africa were you sent?
And I chose. I chose Brazil. But what
As
happened,
you do.
as you do, I chose. My first choice was Brazil.
You
But
got on the wrong plane, or what?
Yeah, I was useless in geography.
No, right.
What happened was, in 1978, Britain and Brazil had diplomatic problems, and to get a visa would have taken months and months.
Right.
So my second choice was Africa, but it was I chose French Africa, and they offered me Cameroon, Gabon, or Congo Brazzaville. So I went to Congo Brazzaville, and they offered me to go either to a city or to a village in the bush, and I chose a village in the bush. So I went to a mission called Linzolo, which was from 1883.
So I presume at that time you had good French.
No.
Brilliant.
I had been a schoolboy.
Yeah.
No, I did school. I was
Schoolboy
a schoolboy
French.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But there's no baptism of fire put in the deep end. So because remember, it wasn't my first choice, because I would have learned Portuguese, but we didn't do that in school either.
Right.
But I would have gone to Brazil. But I went to Congo Brazzaville. I went to Linzolo. I went to a small mission, a rural mission. But that turned to be I was with two middle-aged French priests and one elderly French priest. I was 24. He was 75. And living with them for 2 whole years, that's why my accent has changed, because for 2 whole years I was only speaking French and something of a local indigenous African language.
Yeah.
And the beauty was I was with 3 French priests and a village area of working in evangelization. I took my final vows in 1979 in Linzolo, in the Congo. And then, very beautiful, I was ordained a deacon in the Congo.
Very good.
And then 1980, the summer of 1980, I came back to England and was ordained a priest in the parish where I'd been baptized and, communion, confirmation.
And which bishop ordained you then?
Bishop Geoffrey Burke.
Boys, one of our local boys,
the
right?
auxiliary of Salford. So 1980, September, I was ordained for the Spiritans, which I will come to and explain very soon. But then, amazing, I thought I would be going back after a few weeks to Africa. No, divine providence works in strange ways. They kept me in England for 1 year. They kept me in Salford Diocese, and I was appointed to Helmshire, because the Spiritans, the Holy Ghost Fathers, had the vocation centre in Helmshire.
Right.
And I was asked to join as I was quite young. I was 26 by the time I was ordained. So I was kept in England 1980-81 in Helmshire for youth ministry and vocations ministry. And actually, I loved it. I was very happy. And then again, my life changed. In 81, I was sent to Rome, and I did dogma. I did a degree in dogmatic theology at the Gregorian University in Rome, which was actually a foundational experience for me, and I'm eternally grateful.
Excuse me a minute. And what language was that in now?
That was in Italian.
Yeah.
That was in Italian, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So you've got a linguistic bent, then obviously I can see this.
I failed in mathematics. I'm useless with sums. But
Languages you can do.
Yeah, and
right.
my English is broken, but I get there. Basically, 2 years in Italy, and it was a foundation. It really changed me because I got more confidence, because being a very shy, quiet, self-effacing person, it took me a while to get confidence. And it was only when I went to Italy, somehow 81, 83. End of 83, I was appointed to Africa, but not back to the Congo. I was appointed to Nigeria.
Right.
And was appointed to northern Nigeria, where there's a lot of trouble now with Boko Haram. I was at the Diocese of Yola, which is on the border with Cameroon. So that's northeast Nigeria. And I went there. I was appointed in 83. But unfortunately, being a bit of a wimp, at the end of 1984, I fell very seriously ill with bilharzia. So
What's that?
Bilharzia is worms in the bloodstream.
Ooh, nasty.
Being in the rivers.
Yeah.
Yep, I grew up in Levenshulme, so I was used to it. But we had worms in the bloodstream. So sadly, I had to come. Well, they asked me to come home for a few months, and I went to Drogheda. I went to the tropical hospital in Drogheda, and unfortunately, I had a relapse. So I thought I was going to go back. So then again, my life changed because they said to me, "Oh, well, would you stay in England then and go back and do vocations work?" So I said, "Well, there's worse things, vocations work and youth ministry."
Yeah.
And since Helmshire is so near to Manchester, my family, my mother and father, my brother, my family were quite close. I said, "Okay." Oh no, they said, "Sorry, yeah, vocations work, yeah, youth work, yeah, not Manchester."
Right.
I said, "Where?" "Scotland." I couldn't believe it. The last place God made, Scotland. So
You're going to upset all my Scottish
thank
listeners,
God
you know
nobody
that.
would listen. And this is the gospel truth. I arrived in Motherwell on the 15th of September 1985, the feast of Our Lady of Sorrows. What a sign from God. 15th of September in Carfin. There's a famous grotto in Carfin outside Motherwell. And I was appointed to the youth ministry and the vocations team from September of 85.
And is that specifically vocations for the Holy Ghost Fathers, or as a general work?
As it happened, I was designated for the Spiritans, the Holy Ghost Fathers, but very quickly I got onto the diocesan vocations team, and I got onto the national Scottish vocations team and the national youth ministry team of Scotland. So we then had, as it happened, I had 6 of them. I've had a very happy life, but I rarely had 6 so consecutive years of happiness as I did in Scotland.
Oh, you see.
And in Scotland, I came out of my shell.
Yeah.
And in Scotland was the first time I ever spoke on radio, because there was Radio Clyde, and they used to do these meditations either for morning and evening. And they put me on a test run to see would they put me on the morning or the evening. I spoke about 3 sentences. He said, "You're on the evening one." With a voice like that, you send anybody to sleep. That's the gospel truth.
Is that true?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I got some confidence, and I began then to speak in public at university chaplaincies. There are like 8 universities in Scotland, and that was my first experience of being invited to speak about Africa and the church and religion. So, to cut a long story short, I had 6 wonderful years in Scotland. I then was allowed to do a sabbatical year in 91, 92. I went back to Rome, and then Divine Providence, would you believe it, appointed me as an assistant novice master in Ireland. I couldn't believe it myself, but I was appointed as an assistant novice master in Ireland.
So whereabouts in Ireland was that?
That was in Dublin, because what happened was,
The Holy City.
after 300 years, the French decided to have a novitiate outside of France, to a small international novitiate. There was a German, French, Irish, English, and whatever, and they needed someone who could speak French to be an assistant. But Divine Providence works in strange ways, and the provincial who set me there for 3 years, after 1 year there was a crisis in London, and I was asked to go and would I be prepared to leave Ireland and go to London to become a lecturer in theology. Now, in 1981, and 82, 83, I did the license in dogma
Right.
in Rome, but I never taught, ever,
Yeah.
ever in my life.